Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Ramblings from Two Meddling Kids. I'm Edward Hunt, joined by my fellow Studio Ghibli fans,
Mike Cunningham,
and
Natalie Jacobsen.
And we are the Meddling Kids. And we have a special episode for you today. To celebrate Boy and His Heron in the English version, or the Japanese version is...
How Do You Live?
How Do You Live, Miyazaki's last film. We wanted to do a special Studio Ghibli episode. So what we have today is we're going to be reviewing five Studio Ghibli episodes, going over briefly what they're about. You should honestly watch all of them. Our overall ratings for them, some likes, dislikes, and some important themes we got from those movies. So really fun, trying something different, and we're really looking forward to it. So, I guess the best way is probably let's hop into it. The first movie is Ponyo. Mike, give some background for us for Ponyo?
Yeah, so Ponyo came out in 2008. I should have done a little bit deeper research to see when it actually came out in the U.S. versus Japan.
It's pretty close for all of them.
Okay.
Thankfully.
I'm so nervous.
Natalie is our expert, and this is why we brought her on board.
Don't hold me to that.
She can run circles around us. Just like Shay is our horror expert, Natalie is going to be our Studio Ghibli expert. So we're super pumped to have her on.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you see me sweating, it's because I don't want my facts checked in real time.
Check away, Natalie.
So Ponyo came out in 2008. The Rotten Tomatoes score, we have a 91 critic score, 83 audience score, which I noticed about at least the five that we're doing, or maybe all Studio Ghibli movies. It seems like they have like high 80s to like 100%.
They're all going to be
across the board.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it made 250 million. I want to say either worldwide or I feel like possibly worldwide.
Okay.
Probably worldwide.
Yeah. And that's another thing I did notice about the Studio Ghibli movies is they at most cost about like 25 million to make, but they usually make, maybe 10 times that.
Wow, okay.
When it comes out. Except for Grave of the Fireflies. I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
So some of the limited costs for making these films is because they are all done in-house. They're not like the Marvel movies or Disney studios where they're bringing in outside clients or vendors. It is truly this small team of artists, so costs are very minimal. It takes years to make these movies because they're just going at this very steady, meticulous pace, and it keeps costs a lot lower. Okay. They don't need the marketing that a lot of these other movies need.
Oh,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And then all I know from a kind of background was from the Cinephiles. They had a phenomenal podcast, the Cinephiles. Shout out you guys. I listen to it all the time. But they did an episode on Spirited Away, so they talked exactly about that in-house. So you'll have like Miyazaki and a team of other animators, and they are just working like 12-hour shifts or longer, and just like this crazy intense of just going at it for days at a time. And so it seems like a really intense but creative environment where a lot is happening.
Yeah, so 205 million worldwide for the box office, and then Ponyo, just a brief synopsis, and we can kind of dig deeper after this, but it's the story of Ponyo, a goldfish who escapes the ocean and desires to become human. We know that she meets like a 5-year-old boy, and then the little adventure that they go on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the background. I didn't want to dig too deep.
No, absolutely.
Kind of just doing things sporadically. So.
Yeah, and definitely. So what we're going to do for each of these movies, everyone, is we're going to give a rating, likes, dislikes, important themes, like I said. So Natalie, can you start us off? What is your rating of Ponyo, 0 to 5? What do you think?
So my rating for this one, of the 5 that we're doing today, is actually probably my lowest Ghibli film. I do feel like I was not the target audience. It is a younger film geared more towards children. I would liken it somewhat to Bambi in the level of dialogue, and kind of it's more visual. It's definitely a little bit younger audience. So for me, it was a 4 out of 5 because I do recognize it's like a great story, but not quite for me. So that gives you a preview of my feelings about the next 4.
4 to 5. This is the lowest I have, and it's high. Like,
4.9.
So,
And I'm
that's the heavy number there.
So Natalie's giving it a 4 to 5. Mike, what about you, sir?
Not to disrespect the expert.
Right, I'm like, I gotta hide my number. I'm like, Jesus.
All right, here it comes.
So I agree with what you were saying as far as the fact that I'm not the target audience for this. it was very, very young. Like we watched it the other day, and I kept falling asleep.
Oh my!
You missed the two critical plot points, the only two.
And I was like, yeah. Oh shit, got it. And I'm back in. Like, but yeah, so I don't know if that was just I was a little bit tired. It's not like we watched it late, or just the fact that like it wasn't grabbing me as much. But I'd give it a 3.5.
Okay.
Like I really enjoyed the animation. I think it was just a lot of fun and like very cute. And it was, I think, in seeing that, understanding, okay, that's the target audience then, right? Because I think we talked about, or I can't remember who I was talking to about Elemental when I went to see it, and I sat between a bunch of kids, and they were all up and active.
You were like the one dude.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, guys, laugh studying the film.
I said, guys, can you please?
Come on, guys. This is a movie. All right, come on.
You got your notepad out for some reason.
Exactly. The little boy next to me was like, there's not going to be a pop quiz. Relax, guys.
Or is there?
Exactly.
I live my
I
life
said, son, when you live long as guy. But no, so like, I watched Elemental, which is a animated Pixar film geared toward children for the most part, but it did not capture them. Like they were up and active throughout the entire film, and so like, but with this one, you can definitely see it was like they knew their audience, they geared it towards their audience. Maybe a little bit of messaging there, but like for the most part, this is for children, and I think, but because of that, it did. That's why I agree. This is one out of the 5. This is the lowest ranking that I'm gonna give.
Yeah.
But just for that reason. So yeah, 3.5.
3.5. And also hopping on board with the lowest, I'm going to give it like 3 to 3.5 range. I'm not 100% sure between those two. I do agree that it is more towards children, but there's still a lot of really good things about it. And again, a Studio Ghibli film, like, I don't really think they have bad ones. They just have ones, when you're comparing all of them, you're just like, okay, what's the worst that they've made, which is still better than, 80, 90% of like the rest of the world.
Honestly, it makes sense hearing about the fact that they keep a lot of this in-house and they take their time. It does show on, the final product does show that. And it's something that you can really appreciate, especially with seeing how Marvel, like, or not to dig on Disney,
picking on somebody.
But I'm just like, a lot of these films
punching down now, Mike. All right?
You can't punch down to conglomerates.
That's not how it works. The organization that runs the world.
Yeah, because Amazon's feeling real upset by my words. But it was just like, they give these movies such high budgets, but it was like, you don't see that in because it's like an absentee parent. It was like, you just throw money at it, and that's the solution to it. But with these Studio Ghibli movies, like, no, if they need to take 10 years, they'll take 10 years. Yeah. But you'll get the best product they can give you because of the fact that it is that the letting something grow, so.
Yeah. Cool. So I think, all of us are saying it's pretty good. But what are some of the specific things that we liked about this movie? I'm going to hop to you again, Natalie. What are some of your favorite things or likes about Ponyo?
I mean, the art, just like all of them, breathtaking. I feel like that kind of goes without being said. I liked that the metaphors for this one are more subtle than, say, some of the other movies where it's more pronounced. Yeah. This one, the main metaphor being, love the ocean, respect it, and it will love you in return. He just got his Kiki's delivery service, which we did not review today, but yeah, I liked that the metaphors were actually a little bit more on the back burner of this one, and there are still different dimensions of Ponyo. Like there was a story for adults. Like I did recognize the mom had her own storyline that you could still relate to from more an adult perspective. How she, had these responsibilities, and she did have like that heartache of like her husband's like out at sea and she's like frustrated about raising this kid and all these things. So I did like the different layers are subtle and behind the promised story of the two children. So I really liked that aspect of it, where not things are so ham-fisted in this film. It's just, it is a cute story wrapped up and it has these subtle messages for different
Which is interesting, like to piggyback on that, it's interesting that you say that the messages are subtle, because you would assume, since it's a younger audience, like I told you, it feels like oftentimes like every writer acts like they're writing for Paw Patrol, so they really need to ham-fist this message because of the audience isn't fully developed. So if I need to push this message of sharing, like I gotta say sharing twice, so you get it.
You gotta say family a lot. You gotta say, I love my family.
So it's just like with this one, it is interesting that they are able to layer it in without it being so blatant, which can be appreciated, because it's like, if I know I'm being told a message, do I really get it, or just like, do I get frustrated at the fact that you think I'm too dumb to really understand it?
Yeah. And then piggybacking on that as well, it's like, considering this was 2008, and then especially just comparing it to all the, because everything else we watched for this, it was before, was prior. So 2008 animation is awesome, and like I love ocean animation in general. So just you get such you get so much more whimsical and fun when you're like in the ocean and you see like the floating jellyfish and all the other animals going around.
I think one of my favorite things was seeing the wizard when he summoned his wave spear. Avatar,
we have the water.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I think this was the movie that was James Cameron leaned to. I think it was this one where he leaned to Ponyo as a kind of the blueprint for Avatar.
Yeah.
The more you know.
But it was just talking about that, talking about the animation was like, I think this is why. I'm gonna stop talking about Disney. But doing live action versus animation, you really do see the pitfalls of live action. So it's just like seeing like all the spirits he can do and stuff like that because it's animated was like so fun, and it was like so creative.
Because you don't think that there's a higher fantasy than mermaids, and yet this is a Little Mermaid style story.
Absolutely.
But with different elements that you aren't used to in our Western conception of it. So it's just a little fascinating thing to see how they take on the ocean and add all these mystical elements.
Yeah. And there was I found this in kind of a Reddit deep dive. Reddit and Quora or whatever, that deep dive was just going through, asking questions. And it was looking at Western versus Eastern animation, anime versus traditional, more American style animation. And how more anime style animation, there is more of that, a lot more still images with less movement. Sometimes you might have the same thing, but then there's one small change or one small difference. Versus American style animation, there's a lot more blinking, a lot more moving, and a lot of those things. So that's why I think also talking about budget, why you can have such a more expensive budget too from that American animation, because they're animating all these little extra things. When Ponyo, I think, is a great example of it, is you just have these beautiful landscapes and beautiful imagery going through, but it's this is more of a flat, and then there's some slight movement or a slight shift, and it's just how they put it together is really
they're focusing in on certain things and allowing the imagination to really fill in some other parts.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Take it away.
Yeah. So I think as a whole, I think we're all agreeing, especially from the imagery, it's really great, whimsical, a little fun, definitely a little bit on more for kids audiences. So with that, let's go to some of our negatives of Ponyo. Mike, let's start with you. What did you not like about Ponyo? You're a monster. How dare you? I'm sorry. I was a little early.
I think, like I said, it did in a way. Bore is not the word. I don't think it captured my attention throughout the entire film. Yeah. That was, but like I said, I couldn't point to a specific thing in the story itself. But yeah, I think that would be my only real dislike. It was just there was points where I'm just I did get a little tired. I wasn't as engaged in the film as the other one. So that's the one thing.
Fair.
But I feel like that's the only negative I have throughout all 5 of these.
Honestly, and I think it's going to be a little similar for me. So I'm going to hop in with it just because it's similar. They are beautiful films every single time, but there are times in all 5 of these, I was when they took an extra 2 minutes to do that beautiful landscape pan or all this extra, it was wow, it's so pretty. Okay. Yeah. And it was one of those where I would kind of be okay with moving on a little quicker through some of that, but then that's also is part of the majesty and artistry that is these movies, and you get more of those epic landscapes. So that is such a huge thing for these movies.
Do you think that's because of the fact that we don't have an appreciation for animation as much now, being that so many things are animated? It's the original Psycho, right? It's a classic movie, everybody loves it, but it was the reason why it was so amazing when it came out was because it was doing something new for that time.
Fair.
But a modern audience won't get that part of it. As far as
used to it.
Camera shots or something like that. So it's just that's why I hate it. I watched several films like that where even Citizen Kane or something like that. I hated that movie.
Good God.
I said what I said. Good God. It was just I guess in the time when it came out, all the innovative stuff that it was doing was captivating to audiences. But it was I watched it 50, 70 years later or something like that. So I don't get the same.
Well, we're
reaction.
part of this damn TikTok generation, all right, where everything's bite-sized in 10, 30 seconds. All right, no.
There's a lot of hot takes in there. We knew that Ponyo would bring out.
So that's what they bring out conversation. That's what yeah, I don't
But yeah, so
necessarily know.
that's what I was asking. Do you think as far as the animation, because it was like something as focused as the you focusing on the landscape, the ocean. Obviously, the Studio Ghibli movies, a lot of them, when they're not speaking of anti-war, they are speaking about the environment and I guess consumerism and like different.
That could just be more of an East Coast America thing, where like we're like, hey, I need stuff like now, a little faster, instead of just taking a second. Because with that, I had that thought, and then a couple times I was like, you know what? Look at it, it's beautiful, and then just be like, just look at the fact it's beautiful, and like shut up for a second, and like appreciate it. So potentially, it's kind of like a combination of those.
Yeah, because actually, being from the West Coast, and I had a lot of comedian friends who loved these movies, and I don't know, in Oregon, they actually partnered with an animator similar to Studio Ghibli. So there's a whole marketing series that has those large landscapes. So we have that kind of mentality of like taking a deep breath and appreciating the space. Whereas the East Coast, yes, it's a little bit
it's a little more sometimes,
but it is also a unique thing to Japan because a lot of anime, a lot of TV shows are fast-paced. Like just like maybe shows that we grew up with more from the Disney or Looney Tunes kind of standpoint. So Studio Ghibli is still kind of special in this way that it storytells. Yeah, they take their time. They are more vibes.
Yeah, definitely vibes.
So that's kind of what makes them special, I think, even to Japan.
Yeah. So now give us some dislikes.
Actually, I think the ending of Ponyo wound up being a little bit abrupt, and I felt like the test that the boy did might have, maybe for me, it didn't feel like a big climactic challenge enough. But I don't know what you can ask a 5-year-old to test. So, you know, that's, I mean, like we saw Simba, you know, do some big challenge. So, like, to me, I had slightly higher expectations for, like, how do you prove that love. But
and with that, too, it's like they're 5-year-olds. Like, they're little kids. You know, like, they're little kids. Our kids really, and they're like,
I do like them as they are. Yeah.
I know that you're holding a gun under the state. That's what I have to answer.
Do you like them though? No. Like cooties aside, all right. Sasuke, cooties aside.
Another thing I did love about this movie, since we don't have too many dislikes, is the scene when the dad was passing in the ship and they were doing the Morse code to him. Yeah. And the mom is like pissed off, so she's like, fuck off. I'm curious what she said in Japanese. But it was just like also what was so heartfelt about that was like the dad realizing that what's his name, Sasuke, was operating the thing on his own and able to like send the Morse code and stuff like that. But just the mom obviously very pissed off, so she's laying on the bed. The boy's excited because he got to talk to his dad and stuff like that, and her realizing in that moment like, yeah, I'm pissed, but it was like, I do love being your mom or something. Like, she was like, her attitude just switched. Yeah. And I kind of love, because it's subtle things. It's showing you through storytelling, and it was realistic. It was like her frustrations at her partner, but then like, even I guess just the fact that he's 5, so he's not really getting the nuances of an adult relationship or anything like that. He's just excited that he got to talk to his dad, and her not wanting to taint that moment for him. And I just love that exchange, because it's one of those things where like, so often it's exposited people's relationships, but it was like just to show it. Or that was something subtle that you notice and you keep it moving because it's so regular in our lives. But to put it on in a kid's movie or something like that, to put it on screen,
something
like
very natural.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it.
Cool. So I think that's kind of everything we have for Ponyo. Any other like second things we really want to say?
I just had, I don't know, I didn't do this for all because I feel like they're all award winners, but it did win 5 awards at the Tokyo Anime Awards. And then Animation of the Year at the Japan Academy Prize.
Nice. Cool.
But I feel like there's a bunch of them that won a bunch of awards, at least at the Tokyo Anime Awards.
Fair.
But this is the only one that I noted.
Gotcha. Great. All right, so that's Ponyo. Next, let's move on to Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay, so Howl's Moving Castle came out in 2004.
Yes. At least in
wait for the pause.
So Wikipedia says.
This one has an 87 critic score, 93 audience score.
Okay.
So a bit of a switch. The audience really loved this one. It made 236 million worldwide. It is the story of Sophie, who is turned into an old woman by a witch, and she seeks the help of a wizard who is caught between a war between two kingdoms.
Yeah.
There's a little. I mean, you can, if you want to elaborate, if there's more.
I don't know. I feel like we got the one sentence.
I was trying to keep it real, like really brief. But yeah.
Cool. Mike, let's start with you for this one. What's your rating for it?
This one I really enjoyed.
Okay.
I think I'll give it a 4.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the world that this one created. I think it's the same way how I feel about Spirited Away.
Okay.
I just really, because it's one of those things like as a storyteller or somebody who loves reading stories, I'm curious as to what you can create.
Yeah.
Right? Look at your George Lucas and Star Wars, J.K. Rowling and like Harry Potter's, like these worlds, or like George R.R. Martin, like Tolkien, like the worlds that they create, these fantasy worlds. So I really, really enjoyed this one.
Have you read the book?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that one it's a pretty good book too.
Okay.
So it's a good read.
Nice.
But yeah, so I just really enjoyed the world, the characters. So yeah, 4 for me.
Beautiful. Natalie?
I'm a 4.5 for it. I love, the magic of it. I think it's captivating. One of my likes, I'll just say it right now, is the humor. I feel like this is one of the funnier Studio Ghibli movies. I enjoyed a lot of the quips and the attitudes. I know a lot of fans, I think it had a ton of fans and a higher fan rating because of the romance story. And it is one of the few that has a romance in it. And I think that's, a lot of people got swept up in it. There's a lot of different metaphors in it that are a lot of fun. Calcifer is a classic character, just one of my favorites. So I give it a 4.5. Love the humor, love the art.
Yeah. I'm gonna do. I'm giving ranges for these because it's kind of hard to really pin down one. So I'm giving this a 3.5 to 4. And so it's kind. I recognize part of these might also just because I'm inherently comparing all 5 of these a little bit too. So as you see, I'm steadily going up. But yeah, so 3.5 out of 4. I agree. I really like the magic part of it. I liked. Actually, let's just hop into likes. Yeah, it's like instead of like for that. So hop into likes. I loved the lesson from this. I loved kind of. For a little bit of time when I was looking at Sophie, I was like, what is this spell that she's under? Like, it doesn't make sense. And I was like, are the animators fucking up? I was like, she has a much straighter back all of a sudden. She doesn't look quite as... But then I, got it. It was really depending on, how she was feeling. This was kind of, more things like how she was feeling about things. And, that was affecting, how she was. Because when... I love that lesson. It starts with her turning into this really old lady. But since she turns into that old lady, she, kind of lets herself go a little bit more.
She was kind of just accepting it, almost defeated. So it was a story of building yourself back
Exactly,
up.
yeah.
That was one thing I said when we were watching out. Because, we only got through the first half. But it was just she turned into an old lady, and it was cool. There was no devastation.
She was like, whatever.
She was like, it's just Tuesday for me.
Well, because that's kind of how she was living her life. She had kind of given up on a lot of stuff in her life. She was like, well, Letty, her sister's the pretty one. She'll get the other stuff. It's just my job as the eldest to be here alone in this hat store, and that's it. And her mom was going around all over the world as well. Had herself a rich new boyfriend too, and she was just like, nope, that's not my life. This is me. So to see as she was kind of broken down, but then when she got that point, she felt released and she was able to build herself back up. I thought that was really cool. I really liked that.
That is something. Yeah. I think it goes to the subtlety you were talking about and Ponyo too. Just showing it without actually knocking you over the head with it.
Yeah, showing, not telling.
Yeah, because I was missing it for a bit. When you saw of the spell. So that's really big.
Because like you said, initially it was just okay, how are they fucking up? They were doing great with this animation. It's no, realize where we're at in this film and where is this character at currently.
Exactly. Yeah. Give me some other legs. What else we got?
Sorry.
I liked that this is the anti-war message in here is that war without ration or justice.
Yes.
This movie came out after, and actually as part of Miyazaki's response to the war on terror after 9/11. He historically, famously, did not like how President Bush responded to it and said this is more needless war, and so this movie actually took shape around that, and Howl's journey
that was about his pacifism.
Yeah,
I think that was a theme.
It was a response to the U.S.'s war on terror.
Yeah, because I thought it was really especially the invasion of Iraq. That's why I think because she was Afghanistan one no, but then the extra step on top of it. Yeah,
so it was a needless war, no justice basically being served. So it was just breaking people down.
Yeah.
Just for what, basically. So I really liked that underlying.
How was fighting on both sides, right?
That's what I thought, but
Right.
I think he was summoned by just the king.
Well, he was summoned by the king of the one, but then the other guy knew him as
True,
so there was
true,
one was
yeah, he
Pendragon,
definitely had
and he was like in
aliases,
two
yeah.
like
Okay.
kingdoms
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, so I think he was also like kind of fighting on both sides,
Yeah.
which was interesting.
And then with the moving castle being a representation of him, he can't settle down.
He can't
He's
pick a
always
side.
doing things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's always on the move.
Yeah.
I just thought it had a lot of heart.
Mhm.
I think it was just like you really love these characters.
Yeah.
But like you said, Calcifer was just amazing.
Calcifer was
I really like the little boy. What was his name?
Markle?
Markle. Yes.
Markle, yeah.
This whatever character introduced, even fucking Turnip Head.
Yeah. Okay, Turnip
The
Head
icon
was the best.
character.
Yeah, he was like probably my favorite character. Yeah, he was just hopping along doing everything. Yeah,
But
he
it was
awesome.
like I think it just had so much heart in this one. And then I think I just really love the what's her name, Sophie, because of the fact that even though I made fun of her for like literally just being turned into the old woman and thinking nothing of it.
Yeah.
It was just keeping. I saw it as not seeing it as her giving up on life or her just taking life as it goes type of thing. Where just like, this is what it is. How do we fix this? Like, and still keeping that positivity, right? Because even though she's an old woman, you know, certain people would have just been like, oh fuck this, I don't deserve this. Like all these like just straight negativity. But she just, in my mind, like now I'm seeing like her. Like you said, giving up and then finding a way to live, like as we go further in the film. But I just saw it as her seeing the light in every situation, being like keeping that positivity. Like there's nothing that's going to stop her from being who she actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one was definitely, I think, one of the stronger themes is the self-love also
Yeah.
in tandem with then her and Howl. But yeah, the self-love and the self-confidence kind of lesson.
Yeah,
And keep
absolutely.
going.
Yeah. Trying to think, yeah. And then obviously, I mean, just watching people eat in Studio Ghibli films is always just so fun. Yeah. And so like
This was a great one for
yeah,
food.
exactly. You get just such a great breakfast
The
scene.
bacon.
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
bacon and
God.
the eggs when Marco's eating all that
Yeah.
down. Yeah, it was just it's just the food always looks so delicious, and this was a great one for that breakfast food.
Yes.
Yeah, to have Sophie just be like, "I'm now the caretaker. I hired myself," and she's just going at him. Hell yeah! What are some of our dislikes of this movie?
I honestly don't have any.
I don't have any for this one either.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were trying to chat and trying to figure out beforehand, and this is one that I can't think of one.
For me,
Okay.
how dare you?
No, next movie.
Some stuff to me felt a little random, just with like how it was kind of building, and like because you have this. Okay, here's the Witch of the Waste. She just did this spell on Sophie, and it's like, well, this is how we can neatly tie this bow. The other woman, Suleiman, like took her powers. Now she's an old lady, and Sophie decides to take care of her. And I was like, wow, you were a nice person.
That's what I said. I
Yeah.
saw her as that, like, you had transgressions against me or whatever it is, but it was like, I can never be anything outside of myself.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, she had a bad spirit that Howl recognized, and she was always just going to be bitter forever. And
Yeah.
Sophie actually had the heart that Howl needed, and that
Yeah.
heart of gold.
For sure. And I think that's part of really it is like she had that heart of gold, and she like, because of that and how it affected everyone around her as well. So I get that, but there is
So to go on the I guess the randomness of certain, I think that is with Studio Ghibli, since there is always a hint of mystic or magic.
Yeah.
You kind of never know how it's coming.
Yes.
Which is kind of like with the house and how
Yeah.
it has all the different the levels and doors. So it was
Yeah.
meant to be like suddenly you're in a different
Yeah, because it was like you
world.
see a moving house. Okay, so we're not in America. That we know. Like,
Maybe Elon Musk's America.
And I agree. I think it's from like just the storytelling perspective in general for a lot of Studio Ghibli films. Sometimes, and I'm going to have a kind of similar comment for Spirited Away, is like the storytelling just all of a sudden it's like, perfect, everything's fixed now. And you're just like, but, okay. And like for me that like, sometimes that kind of takes me out of it a little bit because it doesn't, I don't see it as quite like as a neat fix, as an easy fix as the movie kind of makes it to be. They're like, yes, we're magical and everyone loves each other and good. And I'm like, all right, cool, I'm along for the ride. But for me, that takes me out of it a little
Should
bit.
I introduce you to Sleeping Beauty?
Well, and like, I completely agree. So, but that's like, and it's partially because I look at these as like better movies than those, and since I'm kind of seeing them as like a better movie, I'm kind of like putting more of that lens. I'm putting more of that like lens of looking at it through more like Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, great children's movies, classic movies, etc. But these other movies, I'm kind of like I'm elevating them slightly, so then that's why it's...
You expect them to not fall to the tropes of those.
Yeah, but at the same time, like comparing it to the classic Disney movies and classic other, movies, you're like, yeah, it's true, you just kind of accept it and kind of...
That is funny that you said that, because it's like, there's often times in movies where like, they get some obstacle or some situation, I'm just like, oh, how's the game going to get out of this one? Yeah. But it was like, I asked it, but it was like, you better make it make sense. Like, I swear to God.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think that's really, that's more of like a commentary on like storytelling as a whole. But as for the movie, no, it's a rock solid movie. We did talk anti-war. We talked a lot of self-love. Were there any other like themes that we didn't really talk about?
So I have here pacifism. I think that's talking about Howl and his kind of not being able to pick a side.
He killed a lot of people for being a pacifist.
This is old age and compassion. I think. Well, I guess it is that, like, this idea that, like, the older we get, the less, at least in maybe a Western mindset or like an American mindset, the older you get, the less you have to offer to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I guess definitely in Japan, it is this, like, old age, like, you've earned, like, experience and, like, you're wise, you're, like, whatever it is. So it's like you still have a purpose in this society. And not missing that when it comes to just because you've gotten older. Yeah. And then it says flight and the critique of modernity.
Don't you love the random notes that you're like, future
I think there was a lot of Studio Ghibli movies, especially when it comes to like speaking on the environment and stuff like that. It is this, obviously we're modernizing the world, but it was just like the consequences of doing that, whether it's on nature, our mindsets, how we treat one another. It is this modernity definitely being more of a problem than a solution. Yeah. But yeah, those are the things that I had.
Cool.
Well said.
Awesome. All right, next, let's hop to Princess Mononoke, I believe.
Yes.
All right, and I'll start with the rating for this one. This one's my favorite. It gets a 4.5. Of all of them, I think Princess Mononoke is my top Studio Ghibli film. I like that it's a little more straightforward in story. It's a little more of like, yep, this makes sense. Everything I do think gets wrapped up a little bit neater. And it is more adult, just with everything going on with it.
You mean the arms being cut off randomly in the first 5 minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
The headless guy running around.
Yeah. So it was also,
are you?
Whoa.
He's in.
Exactly.
Like, is this Saw?
So you're right with all that. Yeah, this does really apply more to me and like my interests. So I think that's also part of it too. But yeah, so I give this one a 4.5. So what are we thinking?
So just real quick, just a
sorry.
No, you're
background. Yeah.
I was just so eager to talk about it.
It's like, this is a good one.
So Princess Mononoke came out in 1997. The critic score is a 93, audience score 94. So everyone loves this one. Made about 194 million worldwide. It is the story of a prince and his involvement in a war between the gods of the forest and the humans who use its resources. And obviously we can dig deeper if we need to as far as the plot. This one I give a 4. Actually, yes, I think it's between a 4 and a 4.5. Actually. Okay. So I'll give this a scale. I think I like the other two a little bit better, Spirited Away, just because that was my introduction. Fair. So that one has a special place in my heart. And then Grave of the Fireflies, the actual story, was intense, but very well. So yeah, I give this one between a 4 and a 4.5. I agree. It was very. I guess it was. This was action packed. Like it starts off. It was very nonstop. But it was like it had so much story, and it was like
multiple POV kind of.
The storytelling here was like you got introduced to like this world, just like the forest people, like the lady and like her camp and stuff like that. It was just like there was so many pieces to this, and it was like the story, like it was so wide, and you get introduced to the gods and like how they feel about human beings. It was just like. It was just like crazy. The world talking about the world that this one introduced was just insane. Because I really did. I love this one. Yeah. And it was I just watched that one for the podcast. But I never. I guess I'd seen it because of HBO and like looking through the Studio Ghibli movies. But before that, I didn't know this one existed. But this one was amazing.
When they did Ghibli Fest at Angelica, this was the one that I did say, which was awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure that was great to see on the big screen.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, Natalie, what did you give it?
This is my favorite Ghibli film also of all time. So it is a 5 out of 5 for me.
Nice. Hell yeah.
It might be one of my only movies that's 5 out of 5.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I think it's flawless. I don't have many things that I dislike about this one either. So it'll be interesting to talk about that. But I love the essence of it. I love the era that they picked. It was right on pre-modernization Japan. So they're just emulating what does it look like when mankind starts revolutionizing and what happens to the earth. And it's just a tale that still is relevant today.
Absolutely.
And probably will be relevant for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's anywhere in the world. So I loved it.
Yeah. You're going with exactly. I like everything about it. Like it's, I guess you could maybe say like it's not quite as whimsical. Well, it's not quite as like whimsical and majestic as other
Seeing the gods get killed is very ugly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very brutal.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Uncomfortable thing to watch, and
Absolutely.
I think it's meant to be.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting you said that seeing different. Obviously, we had our main character, and but it was just like definitely they did take time to give you the motivations of some of these other characters, like the guy that was like hunting for the head and stuff like that, the lady who was running the leper colony and things like that. Like it was just like
the princess and Mononoke and
there was like different perspectives, and so you saw everybody's motivation. So it was like it added to every time you see a character. Every time you see a character, you see some confrontation. Because since it is a war, it's nothing but conflict. But it was like you feel for it because normally it's your side versus some faceless army, right? And you're hoping that your side wins. Usually, how they tell a story.
But you could almost feel the pull
of
the boy. You had sympathies for every single person.
Like you could feel for the gods. You could feel for like the
warthogs, like everybody.
Yeah.
The wild boars. Everyone had their sympathies in some way.
Yep.
So it's a very nuanced story for an hour and a half, an hour and 50 minutes, something that's very rarely achieved, I feel like, in this day and age. That many stories being told in a film so concisely.
Yeah. I think, it's 100%. We all like it a lot. Is there anything we need to add to it? I guess besides this is a great movie.
Just some of the themes. So development versus preservation. I think that was the whole idea of the human
preserving how much of the world you preserve while using its resources to advance yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
The loss of innocence. I think that was is that the princess herself, kind of this her understanding, because since she was raised by one of the wolf spirits or whatever it was, she only knew the side of
humans are bad. So she was on the side of the forest and kind of realizing a little bit what's the other side, and very much resistant to it up until the end, recognizing that there is a bridge between them. The boy will help.
Yeah.
For some reason, Wikipedia said sexuality versus disability. Now, I got disability with the whole the lepers and stuff or maybe this sexuality because of the brothel ladies or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. And then individuality versus conformity.
Okay. Yeah.
And hope.
Yeah, definitely.
Hope for the end. There was all that destruction, but then in the end, it does regrow. Nature said, "Okay, if you are making this promise, we will grow with you." So it was.
There is a way for harmony.
Yeah, there's a way forward for all of us.
It's a much harder way, and people a lot of times want to take shortcuts, talking about just modern life and everything. But there is technically a way for harmony. It's just not necessarily being utilized, and it's a little more expensive. So people want to take shortcuts every now and then. But yeah. So before we hop to our last two, I realized we never got a quick word from our sponsors. This guy. But as always, I'm Edward Hunt. I'm a real estate agent with Just Be here in the DMV with Compass as my brokerage. And we're all about finding where you're meant to be. So DMV is DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So if you'd like any advice on the market, if you would like any phenomenal handyman or contractors, or if you need to talk to some great lenders who can really structure your finances any way that you need them to be structured, feel free to reach out anytime. Also, I have a comic, Hunt.comics as well. I'm still waiting for the prints to come out, but that should be all up. And I'll be putting on Global Comics and Webtoon as well as a free to read, so I'd love everyone to check it out. All right, let's hop into these last two. So we have, let's do Grave of the Fireflies.
Whew.
So this is a...
You ready to cry?
I'll never forget. We started the movie, and the first line is, "I died on September 14th or 27th, 1945," and he was like, "What the hell is this?"
I said, number one, spoilers. Number two, whoa.
Like, the room got so quiet, and it was like, okay. I thought you said.
This is not like Ponyo at all.
Also, my phone had auto-corrected grave to Grace, so he thought Grace was a Firefly. It was more whimsical, and instead it was like, Grave.
No, it was like, yeah, he said that, and it was like, you see the opening, and once again, I've seen enough movies, I'm just like, this is gonna end well, isn't it? I don't think he's gonna make it. But yes, Grave of the Fireflies. Oh, and also, there's a reason why you couldn't fucking find it. It's gonna bury this one.
Yeah, it's actually one of the ones that's not on HBO Max. It was on, we had to rent it from Amazon.
Yeah. I didn't see it on Amazon. I just got it on like Apple TV. I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna buy it.
But Grave of the Fireflies came out in 1988. It has a 100% score from critics and a 95 from the audience.
Yeah.
Now this one only made 570,000.
That sounds about right. I don't think it really had a
big
U.S. release.
Okay.
I don't think.
And when was it?
A theatrical release.
88.
Yeah.
So this is the story of two siblings and war orphans and their struggle to survive during the final months of World War II.
And this one, it's Takahata instead of Miyazaki. Every other one we've done, like Mononoke was Miyazaki as well, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So everything else we've done and we'll do has been Miyazaki. This one's Takahata. I was looking at and reading a little bit about it as well, and that's like from why he delivered the line early. He's like he wanted to let people know in the beginning that they were dead. So he was like, I don't want you to get your hopes up. I don't want everyone to be completely devastated at the end of this and have you rooting for him. He's like, nope, that's why I'm letting you know that they're dead in the beginning.
It's kind of a walkthrough. The spirit is walking back through, like, how did we...
Exactly. Versus, because he was worried legitimately. He was like, oh man, if people don't know that they're dead through all of this, they're going to be very upset with me. So
even when it happened, I was still like, what? Oh, no, you knew that. You knew, Michael.
Yeah. But, so Natalie, back to you. What rating do you give Grave of the Fireflies?
I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5.
All right.
I agree with the critics who gave it 100. I find it like a perfect film that is. I can't think of. We were trying to think of other movies that are told from this kind of side of a war, and there really aren't many. It's kind of in a league of its own. It is an unusual perspective to see a movie like this, and I think it has such an important place in cinema and in storytelling. So I found it a beautiful way, a very painful and heartbreaking way to tell the story, but very essential. I would consider it just a very poignant 5 out of 5.
Yeah. Speaking of like how you're talking about just like that perspective as well, like different but similar just because it's a movie around the same time frame. 1,000 Paper Cranes was a book I read in elementary school, I remember, and that was the story of that is she survived one of the nuclear explosions. I can't remember which one, but because of that she got cancer, and then so she kind of like you watch her steadily waste away, but she folds 1,000 paper cranes or tries to, because there's a legend that if you fold 1,000 paper cranes, any wish is granted. So she wanted to wish to be healthy. And I remember that like stuff from like that perspective and that storytelling from the other side was big. So I was thinking about that a lot while watching this movie and just seeing like the interactions of the war. With that, rating wise, I'm giving it. I said 4.5 on when I was first thinking about it, and it might be a 4 just because it made me a little uncomfortable. So I'm going to say 4.5 because it is a really good movie. Like across the board, and you all know, like I only give 5s to like Fifth Element, things I'm biased for. So a very different kind of 5 is my 5. So yeah, I'm gonna say 4.5 because it is just a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, I agree. 4.5. Yeah. I once I got past the fields, this one was just a really really good movie.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting to see that storytelling. Like as an older brother, I can definitely relate to trying to shield your younger siblings from things that are happening, but also not being able to deal with like what you're going through because of the fact that in that moment you feel the need to protect. So I just and also realizing how young they were. Yeah. Like as he's doing this.
Yeah, you want to tell the boy like what to do, but then you have to remember he's 12.
Yeah.
He does not have any.
Yeah.
And also like it is coming from a modern understanding. It was like, oh, why don't you call your? It was like, bro, it's 19.
Yeah. He has no idea what ship his dad is on. He has no idea what ward they would be in. It's
So yeah, I think because we were talking about the fact that it was like, why don't you get her help or something like that? But it was just like, does he even know what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Well, because he asked the doctor, like, give her a pill or a shot, and they're like, there's nothing we can do. She needs to eat.
Yeah.
But it's too late by that point.
By the time that happens. Oh, yeah, because it is. It's just, I guess I'm gonna go with dislike. I was just sad the whole time. I'm just sad the whole time watching this movie. Respecting it, it's such a great movie. I'm just like, at no point, I think, was I really happy watching this.
I like the scene where I felt happy was when she had the swing.
Okay, yeah.
The daughter had the swing.
Well, I think it is like there's a lot of dramas like that where it's like the whole point is to get you in your feelings, make you feel uncomfortable, or whatever, or just make you feel in general.
Yeah.
So there are those sparks of hope, right?
Yeah.
So I think him finding ways. It's like I think Life is Beautiful is the movie. About the dad that it's during like the Holocaust or whatever, and like they're in an internment camp, but he won't tell his son that.
Okay. Yeah.
So like he keeps pretending. He just keeps pretending the whole time.
Yeah.
And it just kind of so him finding like little moments of light in this horrifying time.
Because life does continue in some way.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You can't sit around and wait. So.
Yeah. So let's be a little happier, I suppose. Likes about the movie. What are some specific likes that we really liked about it?
I like the authenticity of the story, how on this background of the horrible war going on, the bombs being dropped, like in between each, like they still work, or they're still looking for food, or they're still finding ways to play, even though, of course, like the aunt that took them in was criticizing them for it, like they are kids, though, so when they're living on their own and they're finding just the ways of like, well, how do we live? How do we build a life? And it just felt very honest and like a very authentic way kids would try to survive. And what do you do? They can't contribute much to the war. They can't work. They're orphans. What
do you do?
What more?
Yeah,
so it felt just like a very genuine, like, yes, we're living day by day like this. And I just love that look.
I really did enjoy the relationship between the brother and sister. I think it was very genuine, very like natural. Him being very protective, her being very naive, but it was also in that naivety is like her bringing light to this situation, right? Yeah. Her not understanding like, she's hungry or like these different things, but it was like still keeping a positive face on it. But that's what I mean. At that age, that's what you do. Yeah. Also, I think even though it happened early in the movie, it was just like this kind of meeting her once he finally passed away, and it was just like, it sucks, but it was like it is like you said, it sucks that it starts with a death, but even in understanding death, it was just like. If you do believe in those things, like in the afterlife or something like that, you do get to be reunited with the people that you were missing or that went before you. For sure. So I did enjoy. I just really love the relationship between the siblings.
Yeah, and I agree. Like from like a true depiction of like what these people had to deal with and what was going on. It's like they're civilians in a war that is a war affecting their country. So this is what they're dealing with every day, and like there's so many parallels to what's going on in the world right now about that. So it's kind of like, hey, watch this movie, and then you kind of maybe get an inkling about what people have to deal with when a war is being waged in their country.
And also with the spirituality thing too. In Japan, they have very regimented rituals with death. So that's also just very jarring for their culture to have war and something, and like the tsunami in 2011. So many deaths could not go through the process of respect that they require in their beliefs. So to have that too is that whole journey. It is a very uncomfortable film for that kind of reason too, because the spirituality is a little bit different. It's like, oh my gosh, we didn't get to close that chapter, so it's
100%. Yeah, and I would say like from like the fact that you can make me like dislike that woman so much, like the aunt that was taking them in, while also still I 100% saw where she was coming from, and I was
like, do some chores. Yeah, she was want to tell the kids.
Yeah, I totally get where she's coming from. God, I don't like you, but I also totally makes sense, and I can't see myself really acting that much better if I was in a situation either. Right. You get like that from it. So the fact that this movie could portray that so well was very masterfully done. Yeah. Let's talk about some dislikes. What did we not like about this movie? It was too damn sad. Other than that,
I think sad. That's all I got. I feel like I can't critique anything further. I'm just
Yeah.
It was just like, we
But
watched
it's
it and it was like,
important.
okay, let's turn on. We should have watched fucking Ponyo.
Yeah, we were trying to do a marathon of
Okay.
Brave first, and then
Okay.
it was Mononoke first, and then
Yeah, then
Brave,
Brave, yeah.
and then Howls, and then Ponyo.
We should have done Ponyo. God damn.
Yeah, we should have done Ponyo. I thought it was going to
This
be
is
a
a
little.
chaser?
I thought it
It
was
was
going to
also
be a
1
little too
o'clock in the
jarring.
morning.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It was 11:30. It would have ended at like 1 o'clock.
Yeah, like, all right.
Damn, we should have done it.
But you would fall asleep during Ponyo anyway.
Full circle.
Yeah, exactly. So Jason, let's talk an important theme. So we definitely talked about like war and its effect on people.
So I have society's lack of protecting its own people. So I think that's what it was. It was just like you saw in this movie that, I mean, maybe just because of the fact that since it is a war, and so there aren't systems in place, but they weren't able to protect these kids.
Yeah.
And I assume like they weren't the only ones. It was just the ones that the movie focused on. But it was just like the most vulnerable people in society got, cast aside just because they didn't have a purpose, or they were just mouths to feed. They couldn't work. They couldn't, the best you could do is chores or something like that. So it was just like not the society not being able to protect its own people if they don't provide a service.
There was with that as well. I mean, like 100%, they weren't the only ones that had to deal with that. You saw in the beginning of the movie all those other boys who were like around his age that were all like super emaciated and like hungry and like passed out, and probably besides him, others were probably dead too. That were all like in that like train station area, while important business people were just walking and be like, "Oh man, what? The Americans are coming. We gotta, why is he here like this?" Yeah.
And then isolation from society.
Definitely.
Them being that they couldn't be with their aunt, they couldn't find their any other family, so it was just like they just found some place for them to be safe and provide for themselves. But it also, because of that isolation, they ran into being malnourished and not being able to.
They didn't even know the war ended.
Yeah, because they were out there. He was like stealing to get by what he really could, and he got caught there at the end. And
I think that's what messed me up, is the fact that when he did get caught and the cop, like, why don't you say something like, not, but I mean, once again, we talked about the fact that he's 12, so maybe he may not know, but it was just like, these are the times, especially, I remember that being like 9 or 10, and it was just like, you looked up to adults because like they were the authorities on anything.
Yeah.
So it's just like the fact that when he got caught, they taking the police officer. The police officer gives him a break because of the fact that he's a kid. But it was just like, bro, my sister's sick. So say something. I think I feel like it was that one where I'm just like, sir, please, like, help her.
Yeah.
Like you finally have an adult that's not treating you like shit.
Who's kind of on your side.
Yeah.
With him being like, I should put you up for assault, talking to the guy because the dude beat the crap out of him, and he was like, hey, I should put you in for assault, or you can get the hell out of here. And then so all right, and our last, was that the last theme?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And our last movie is Spirited Away. Mike, you said this was your favorite, so please, background and start us off.
Yeah, so Spirited Away came out in 2001. It has a 96 critic score and a 96 audience score. So like I said, I feel like the lowest score we got from this was 83.
Yeah.
Across the board. Everybody seems to love the Studio Ghibli movies. This one, I think, made the most, possibly. From the Studio Ghibli. It made a 396 million worldwide. And then the background is, there's a story of a 10-year-old girl who enters the world of kami and afterwards her parents are turned into pigs by a witch. So she begins to work for that witch in order to free her parents and return home.
And I remember this one you were talking about, just like with worldwide release. So Toonami, way back when. So Toonami, for those of you who don't know, Toonami was, it aired on Cartoon Network from usually like after school for a couple hours. And I remember when this dropped on Toonami. And that was like the height of like, I'm talking elementary, middle school for me. So I wanted to watch nothing like Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, and whatever else was more actiony. And I remember when this dropped and I was like, Spirit Away, what? And I just watched the whole thing. It was like,
I think because of, that's why this was my introduction.
I think
because it dropped on something that it's not like something I was searching for.
Yeah, that's
but this is my favorite. So if we jump into ratings, 5 out of 5 for me.
Okay.
Like I really enjoyed. I think this one also, it was like, it had horror elements.
It has everything.
A bit of action, like the scene like with the spirit comes in and finally has money to like buy, like, I don't know, it was just like, I just loved everything about this movie. Like I have no dislikes. except for the fact that it scared me as a child. Like, I get over it.
Yeah, but it's scary. Yeah.
But like out of all the Studio Ghibli movies, this is my first one and the one I've seen the most.
Okay.
Like I've returned to this one several times.
There's so many things to see in it that you see something new every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 5 out of 5 for me.
Cool. Natalie?
I'm a 5 out of 5 for it.
Okay.
I also this one is jam packed with so many elements. It's just a feast for the eyes.
Yeah.
And there's so many metaphors and lessons going on in this one that it's very intricate, and it's just a really nice story about family and all these other things going on. And
it seems to also be a coming of age, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit more of their coming of age one.
Her learning to stand up for herself and be more confident in herself. There's a lot of really great things with this one, for sure. And that's why I'm giving it a 4. It's a great movie. I really don't have like any dislikes. It's more just
he just likes Fifth Element more.
Yeah, exactly. Fifth Element. You know what we're not going to do? Exactly. This movie didn't have Ruby Rod. All right, so like, come on, man. Come on,
There cannot be 2 5 movies in it.
Exactly.
In the words of 4.5, there can only be one.
No, I completely agree. Spirited Away is phenomenal. It's a great movie. It's more, honestly, I'm giving it a 4 more because I gave Princess Mononoke a 4.5. Like, Spirited Away probably could really be around a 4.5 as well. It's just, I feel like maybe it shouldn't. Maybe if I'm giving this a 4.5, I give that a 4. And that could just be me being stubborn. But again, excellent movie. Highly recommend the watch. Let's get into some of our likes. Mike, again, with you. Let's start.
I think I love This is, I don't know if every movie has like we talked about Howl's, it has the story arc, right? The arc of the character. And I think this one had one of the more prominent ones with her being very, like she's moving to a new school. So like there's a standoffishness. She's like kind of a bratty in the beginning.
Yep.
And then, but you see her become more self-reliant, more confident. Just a stronger person throughout the film. So I kind of really appreciated them showing that, right? Because you don't see that in Ponyo really much, or whatever. Grave of the Fireflies or anything like that. Like this was one of the Studio Ghibli movies where you do see this character growth, this development.
Absolutely.
And it's just very prominent. It was just dope to see. Like, I mean, it sucks to see that it has to come through tragedy, but that's often the case in real life anyway. But I just loved the growth of this character throughout.
The taking on the anxiety.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, you can feel the visceral anxiety that she is suffering of like, well, how do I do this now? How do I do this? And the more she's trying to problem solve, the deeper her holes she digs herself in. And suddenly it's like, how much more can she take? It really is stacking the stakes here in this one. And it really keeps you in suspense of like what's going on and all the different characters she meets. All the kami, in this case, it's different spirits, it's different gods. It's all representative of different things. Capitalism, consumerism, money won't bring you joy. All those themes are in here. And the whole weaknesses, like the giant baby is hilarious, but it's that glaring weakness that we all have, and that's what it feels like. Like, oh, I can be the most advanced witch or god in the world, but I still have this Achilles heel, this baby I can't control. It's just hilarious how they visualize all these concepts that we carry with us, and how it does go through the full spectrum of human emotions. It has a little bit of love. It has like the element of you have to trust somebody, and you have to trust yourself too, and especially going after family and what you love. And I love her journey, and I love especially the anxiety. I relate to that quite a bit. The empowerment element, and just going through that whole world, taking on all those fears.
And with that, I mean the world. I mean, if we're talking world building, this thing builds a damn world. It's just, it throws you into it. It throws you into the deep end of it, but not in an overwhelming way. Like you were just chucked in. You're like, okay, this is what's going on. You see everything, and you're fascinated by all of it. You're enjoying all of it, and you're like, you feel like her. You feel like
I think it's perfect. They often have these characters in a movie where it's like they are a representation of the audience. They are the audience's mirror, their glimpse into this world. It's kind of like, I was thinking, you just said that, it reminded me about Coco.
Okay.
In a way, like him being thrust into the spirit world. But yeah, sorry, go on.
No, so with that world was phenomenal. I love that there were scary parts in this. Like 100%, you show this to a small child, they will be like they will
No
be
face
afraid.
is terrifying.
Yeah, no face is
And
scary.
it seems so simple, and that motherfucker started eating. And I was like, hold on, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The mask doesn't have the. Okay,
He's standing there like the bunny from Donnie Darko, like in a corner, and then suddenly he turns into this gluttonous beast that's comical, and you're like, oh, it's like a Bogart. Suddenly
Exactly, it's just right
changing
there.
and you're laughing at it. Yeah.
But then even like the pigs, like the transformation
Oh
of
my
parents,
gosh.
like coming out of nowhere, that's scary to see. Like that's going like
And it hits with especially a child, like the
Exactly.
anxiety of like, oh my God, now what do I do? My
Yeah.
parents did everything for me, and I'm always like, Mom, why? But
Yeah.
now it's like,
And I think it's also like a really good like a likes was when it's talking about like the theme and consumerism and all of that, and why like it was such a great thing that No Face was able to tempt all these people with money and gold and be like, hey, look at this. And as soon as they took it, what was he then allowed to do? Eat them, swallow them up. But because she didn't take any of that from him, she was the one that he couldn't have, and then he actually couldn't swallow her. And then also you even look at it from like so much of this was she was like one of the first people to really be nice to him. So then what happened was he started to obsess about her. He started to do all these like other things, and like that's clearly not fair to her. So it's like he like built her up. It's like all he wants is Sen. I want Sen. I want Sen. But like no, it's like that's not how you can't just control and own and eat people like that. And then it was really solid. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think like all the magic movies, seeing all the characters, I loved as well. Other likes that we're really thinking before.
Yeah, my only thing was the world. I think I like I said, I just really enjoy peeking into someone's mind, and they're not even just their mind, but whatever they create.
Yeah.
So it was just like being in this spirit world, and like, I think it's also something as simple as just a fucking bathhouse. It's like-
but world building in this bathhouse that seemed infinite. So Mary Poppins of bathhouses.
Well, this is where all the kami and ghosts and everyone goes to go and like relax a little bit. It was their fancy super spa, and like yeah. So do we have dislikes? You gave it very high.
Outside of
The scary.
I was gonna say, the horror elements, especially like since it is, and I think what's frustrating oftentimes is like you see animation, you think children, and luckily now we're moving away from that.
Yeah.
We're just like not, animation is for everyone, but it was just like I think for a younger person, seeing some of those like especially like No Face, or even the pig transformation stuff like that can be like a bit jarring.
Yeah.
And something that's not expected. But I mean, once again, it's not something that's terrible. I don't have many dislikes.
Yeah.
I think that scene was just both like when he was over consumed,
Chasing her down.
It was a bit scary, but it was also comical in a way because it was like one of those things with like understand. Like I said, he had a mask on, so. The layman would assume that is his face.
No. It's the upper part of his face, for sure. But yeah, not the mouth. Yeah. Yeah. Any dislikes on your end, Natalie?
Not really. I think in general, the movie probably does require a little bit more context for understanding some of the spirituality and the kami that are seen in here. So I feel like with deeper context explained, it could mean something more to more audiences. But that's the only critique I can think of.
Yeah. For me, it's going to be kind of similar. It's a little random, just so like it was Yubaba was this. Oh no, Z-Baba was her twin, right?
Yes.
Z-Baba comes off, and she was the one at the end who turned out to be really, really nice. But Z-Baba, when you first meet her, looks like she's going to be mean and evil, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh no, I'm kind grandma," and I was like, "Where was that come from? I didn't think you were going to be kind grandma. All she did was just get to you, you know what I mean?" Like, but that turned her into kind grandma. So I was a little like, okay. And then at the end, like you do like. Everyone's else shift towards her made sense, except maybe even Yubaba, because then Yubaba was like, "Oh, you got me. All right, you rapscallion, you get out there." And I was like, "You wanted to take her soul forever. Like literally 10 seconds ago, you wanted to, keep her here forever." And I'm like, okay, but I guess that'd be my dislike from it. But yeah, it's really not much. It was a great
it's
movie.
pulling from very classic folklore stories from Japan,
absolutely,
where it actually is like more simple endings and morals than maybe we would. Expect. It's a lot of these stories just wrap up and it's like, oh, that's all.
And I think like because I haven't really been ingesting media or stuff like that as much, I'm not like quite as used to it. But honestly, it reminds me of like fairy tale like and like in school, like fairy tale days, and like we're like, hey,
Fables.
write your own fairy tale,
Yeah,
fables.
fables.
And then like write your own fable and fairy tale, and I was like, cool. And then you just have like and the end, everything's great, and I was like, oh, that's true. So thanks for saying it, because it's so right. It's just with stories like these, you can have like a cleaner, simpler ending, and it doesn't necessarily take away from. It doesn't need to be like this
We don't
crazy.
need to go on and on. And,
Yeah.
It's fun.
So with that, some other themes that we got from this.
Fantasy, obviously, supernaturalism, Western consumerism. I think we talked about that.
A little bit, yeah.
And then environmentalism. Was that big?
It was
for
with
this?
the river spirit. So what the slime monster
yes,
when it came in all super dirty, and then they were able to take out all of that trash
poison
some
and
of
the trash. Yeah.
Got
then
it.
it became like back to.
And this says traditional Japanese culture.
So that would be the kami and how that's coming from Shinto and a lot of their beliefs and the folklore, the fables from their tradition, bathhouses. Yeah, it's all just built in, it's seeped in. So hence my comment earlier about needing deeper context, maybe to understand a little bit more of these nuances and why things are presented the way they are in this movie.
And something else to think about, like we're talking Yubaba with her baby, and you saw that because like she never let that. Then why she couldn't control the baby was because she was like why she couldn't control it is because she was trying so hard to control it.
Yeah.
Before Sen or Chihiro even was there, that baby was not allowed to leave the room. She lied to it constantly and said, "Oh, if you leave, you're going to get germs and you're going to die." Right?
Yeah.
There's all so because of that, it like all this other stuff happened, and the baby like needed to grow as well.
Yeah.
So when it became the mouse and it actually had adventure and saw the outside world, even the baby got a damn character arc or growth arc, which was really cool too. So with that, you know what? I'll give it a 4.5. I'm going to up it to a 4.5 instead of a 4.
I knew we could convince you, but I'm still disappointed.
But yeah, anything else we want to talk about with Spirited Away before we start kind of wrapping?
No, I think I'm gonna watch it again today. Like I do miss that movie.
Nice.
Like I said, it was one of my favorites. Didn't think it like, going in, but it was like after watching, I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Okay.
And I think it's also too. It's an introduction to, even though it is a supernatural world, it's still introduction to a culture that I'm not familiar with. So talking about the nuances of Japanese culture, I think even though I don't know all of it, I could still get that from this movie. And it wasn't like you had to spoon feed it. It was just like kind of understanding. Just in a way.
Yeah. Well, great. So that is our Studio Ghibli episode, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, we are at Two Meddling Kids on Twitter and Instagram. Mike, how can they reach out to you?
On Instagram, Jesus Christ, at Days from Legendary.
Excellent. And then, Natalie, how can we reach out to you? And please, give us a quick plug. What do you have going on? Natalie's got some awesome stuff going on, so we would love for her to share that with all of y'all.
Thank you. You can find me on Instagram at NatalieAnnaJ. I am actually going to be a debut author this year. My book is a historical fantasy set in 1877 Japan. Its name is Ghost Train, and it'll probably be out fall 2024. And funny enough, when I was shopping this book around, I would comp Princess Mononoke.
Okay.
So it has a little bit kind of spirituality, a little bit of the environmentalism, industrial revolution coming up. So a little bit of the folklore. It's a whole deep dive into the ramifications of humanity. So look forward to that. Can you follow me?
Absolutely. Please check it out. I can't wait to read it. So yeah, I'm really excited. If you'd like to reach out to me, I am at EdHunt77 on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find my stuff for comics at hunt.comics on Instagram. But again, thank you so much for listening, everybody, and we'll be back next week with a brand new movie. See you next time.
Bye.